From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, December 17th. I want to thank our title sponsor for the Weather Weeklies videos to make these possible every single Sunday, LH Zimmerman in Ephrata, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. They are also the weekend video forecast sponsor. We're going to get into some a little more technical today, and the reason I'm doing that is I laid some things out on the long range, and I tried to discuss a little bit, but this is going way over people's heads, and I understand... Yeah, and I'm going to explain. I try to explain a little bit here today, but I really can't give you a full hows and whys. One, because it's proprietary what I do. Okay, so I'm not trying to give out trade secrets to people what we're looking for and all that stuff. And we're doing the long range outlooks. The hint here, this is the main takeaway. Big hint is it is not model based. We use the models to kind of collaborate with the ideas that we've already put forward based on global observations and things that are going on upstream. Okay, so that's. We use the models, though, to collaborate with those ideas and say, that's exactly what I thought I was going to do. Or, no, that's not. I don't think that's right because of this, this, and this. Okay, so this is what we do when we do long-range forecasting, or at least that's what I do. So, and then I'll take, when the models come into range, then we'll look at it and say, yes, this looks good, or no, this looks like a bunch of BS, okay? And sometimes you have that. So we're always targeting kind of like the transition week during the last week of the month. And it's all going to depend on a few things, but we are going to remain mild up until that point. I think we're going to have a milder than average Christmas. This is not going to be a torch, though, not in the traditional sense, meaning you're not wearing shorts on Christmas Day, wearing 60s and 70s here. Temperatures will still be in the 40s, but they will be above average or where they should be for that time of year. Okay, so it's always relative to average when we have these slightly above or slightly below average periods, as relative to average at that time of year, not. You see these anomalies and maps out there with the bright reds and everything. Everybody's like, oh, my God, it's a big torch coming. No, that's not how it works. So we do have, in our long-range chart from Friday, a couple above average periods highlighted here. And they're transient, but they're, above average nevertheless. Like we are currently in one now with this low pressure coming at us today. That's going to give us plenty of rain once again, another coastal system. In the wake of that, for a couple days, you'll have near to slightly below average temperatures, and then you kind of go back up heading toward Christmas, and a little bit after that. Then we have a near average transition somewhere around the 27th, maybe 28th. Might have a couple near to slightly below average days after that, but if you notice the first week of January, I still have near average here. I don't think we're going to be like just diving into cold here. And I think it's a misconception when you hear pattern change. All we're trying to do is get rid of the anomalous warmth so that you can have snow. You have to remember the first week of January, you're very close to climatological average or climatological minimums for the annual for the year at that point. You're getting close to it, so you really don't necessarily need slightly below average temperatures to get snow, especially if you're in an interior location, because near average temperatures are usually good enough, and you're getting close to that period where it really doesn't matter if you're near average or below. You don't have to have slightly below or below average temperatures in order to have snow, but it helps, of course. The colder it is, obviously, the better chance you have. But we still have this first week of January near average. I still think you're going to see some kind of ups and downs in that week. I really do. And it's not till week 2 that you start to see more of a transition towards colder, and then really solidly getting into that once you get beyond that. So I do still think that the month of January is slightly below average, and we have that here indicated on our chart, and we're slightly above average here for this month by the time the month ends, and that's averaging all the cooler and warmer periods together. But above average precipitation this month because of the last week's big rainstorm. We have another one coming today into Monday morning, but snowfall is going to be notably behind. You have some snow up in our northwestern areas, and that's it. That's up by Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, and over the corridor from there over to like Williamsport. Now the rest of us are, and they're still slightly below there, but at least they're had some snow. Most of that was with last week's system. There'll be an additional system coming through on Tuesday. It's a little upper level trough moving through. You'll get some mood flakes type thing. Here is December and January snow and what is normal. You'll see December. You're not getting a tremendous amount of December. We're not going to meet these averages most likely. Even in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, where you have some this month. January snow does increase on average, and I do think we are going to end up with near to slightly above average snowfall in January, so that should be most areas here should get on the board if you're not there already. Here's what the year-to-date snow is thus far compared to what we should be to this date. Okay, this is the exact updated to this day, what you should have year-to-date in snowfall. Now, it's not a lot here, but you should be seeing, on average, at least some snowfall. We haven't at most areas with these trace amounts. Trace means that it wasn't really measurable. You might have had a quick dusting on the ground. It wasn't really measurable, then it melted, that kind of thing. And there's most locations did that. Scranton Wilkes-Barre checks in with 3.1 year-to-date, which is about 4.2 inches below average, okay? For as far as our system coming in today, this is our rain map that we put out yesterday. I put it out on social media, not on the weather alerts page because there's no wintry component to this, at least not with this system. But there's a wide area of 1.75 to 2.5 inches in red covering the majority of our region. Slightly less on the western fringe here, but it's really still pretty impactful there too. And also localized higher amounts possible. There's possible to some areas here and here get over 2.5 inches in a few areas, but as an average for this composite, I can't draw a map that shows little anomalies popping up. So we just cover that with the locally higher amounts possible. And this goes through Monday morning. I think it's going to be on either side of noon. As you see the new NAM, it has some showers this afternoon, revolves into steady periods of rain this evening, then heavy overnight, most likely between midnight and 6 a.m., 7 a.m. That's your heaviest period. But this is going to end on either side of noon, a little before noon in our southern areas, and maybe about 1 o'clock or so in our far northeastern areas. But it's going to mean either side of noon. It ends on Monday, but your heaviest period of rain is going to be overnight. This is rain. Not a tremendous amount of wind, a little higher here at the shore points, Delaware, South Jersey, those areas that can be expected with the low pressure moving by. But, the interior is not going to really see any wind of note until we get into the wake of the system here on Monday afternoon. We have cold air and advection-related wind coming in. And then again Tuesday with the upper level trough, but that's going to be a different animal, not these hurricane force winds that I've been reading about on social media. I'm like, oh boy, simmer down. We don't use the NAM for synoptic guts because it overmixes the boundary layer and it puts out these crazy amounts of wind. And I was surprised to see some meteorologists that I follow actually sharing that. There's really no point in doing that, but whatever. There is an upper level trough moving through on early Tuesday morning, so you could see a few snow showers, actually making it pretty far east too. I think the most notable areas are going to be across the interior parts of north central and northeast PA. But you see some of these snow showers get down pretty far south, all the way to I-78 and continue in New Jersey before they start dying out. Quick coating to an inch in some places, maybe a little bit higher than that out here. But we're going to cover this this is a separate system. This is not dealing with this first system at all. This is not precipitation or cold air catching up to the system before it exits and changing rain to snow. This is an entirely different thing. Is the upper level trough coming in and a vigorous upper level low associated with it. So we'll look at this again on Monday morning, send alerts as needed for areas that we're expecting to have this snow shower activity, which would be later Monday night into early Tuesday morning. Okay, so that's that system. We covered that pretty well. So I just want to cover the more technical stuff here. Now, we talked about, I put a forecast out there every week, and I like to explain it and why. It's not just about, well, here's my forecast, and believe it if you want. If you don't, oh well. This isn't how that works. I want to show you exactly where we're coming from, and I try my best in the discussion portions of the long-range outlooks to defend our position, okay? It's not just, here's our forecast, and that's it, like most people do. This is why, okay? And this is why I came up with this idea. So we thoroughly depend, almost like a thesis, we thoroughly defend our position on a weekly basis. And I understand most people don't read those outlooks, but if you did, you'd understand where we're coming from. And I'm going to kind of explain that here today. Here is the El Nino situation here. Again, cooling a little bit actually a lot in our far eastern regions out by the Peruvian coast. It went down 0.7 degrees Celsius. That's one heck of a drop from last week. And I will tell you, it's going to drop even further going to this next week. It looks like just from the data I'm looking at. This comes out every Monday, so I'm looking at six-day-old data here, but it looks like the middle two regions, which is 3.4, Nino 3.4, and Nino 3, are the warmest of the two. Actually, 3 is probably the warmest overall. So we're getting a little bit of a shift here. So we're not going so much far east base like it looked like we were in. We were certainly in the fall months, but we're kind of steering away from that. What that means is here's your 1 and 2 region right here, right? So it's still, still above average temperatures in that area, but we're starting to see the highest ended up right in here, which is your Nino 3 and Nino 3.4 regions. That's your highest anomalies relative to average. And this isn't too far behind in Nino 4, but it's not quite there yet to make this a basin-wide event. But it is trending in that direction still. And you can see over the last... just the temperature change in the last 15 days, you can see the warmest regions here. The ones that are warming more are in these Nino 4, Nino 3.4, Nino 3. And then you see a decline here in the far eastern regions near the Peruvian coast. So that is a trend that we've seen here recently. There is another westerly wind burst that is going to kind of mess with the temperatures here over the next couple days, but I think we're going to start to decline. As we go into January, we'll see a decline in these values, so they're not going to be quite as high. So this is a strong Nino yet. Probably stays strong for most of the winter, if not all. It might get close to moderate once we get toward the very tail end in March, but it looks like it's going to be a strong Nino year, and that's really not the question. It's just a matter of where the best anomalies are within those Nino regions, and that's important, as I've said many times here in these videos. So everybody's talked about this Pacific jet extension, and we can see that clearly. This is looking at Christmas Eve, and you can see it's a very strong Pacific jet that extends all the way from this is Japan, by the way, and this goes all the way across the Pacific. It's almost straight into California, here's the west coast of the United States. So it's a very extended Pacific jet, and it's a very strong Pacific jet. This is going to generally flood a lot of the air, a lot of mild air into the country, and it's going to be most notable in the central part of the country, the Midwest, upper Midwest especially, and then when you get into Canada. Now that is relative to normal. It's not going to be a blowtorch. It's blowtorch relative average for them. Not here. We're not going to have a blowtorch here, but in those areas, compared to where they should be, which is like, sub-freezing highs easily, highs in the teens typically, and your highs are hanging around 32. Obviously, that's, it's still cold enough to snow there, but it hasn't been snowing. So there's a long Pacific jet extension, and at the same time, we have a negative EPO. We have an Aleutian trough. So these are not good. You put a big L right here over the Aleutians. This is not a good setup here. Especially here's a Pacific jet coming in like this toward California. It's a very screaming jet at this time, and this is looking again Christmas Eve. But if you look at this pattern here, obviously it's warmer than average here, right? We're in the southeastern fringe of that, so we don't get quite as warm as some other areas are getting, especially up here in the upper Midwest, Great Lakes region. But it is still warmer than average, and it's because of these things that are here. Most notably the positive EPO with the Aleutian trough and that screaming jet in the Pacific. So in order to understand where we are, how we got here, and where we're going, we have to look at the root cause of this. And a lot of this is tied to two things. The East Asian mountain torque, which you heard about, and some of you are like, what the hell is that? I get it. And I'm going to try to explain a little bit. It's not as simple as I'm trying to make it here. There's really no layman's terms way of talking about this, but we're going to talk about it anyway. And and there's also the atmospheric angular momentum, which is the Earth's atmosphere in relative to the Earth's spin and how it reacts. So I'm telling you, this is a lot of Greek stuff here. But first, when I take a look at this image here on the 24th of the morning or actually early afternoon on the 24th of December, which is not too long, about a week from now, right? And compare this to get a snapshot mentally of what this looks like. Look at what it's supposed to do in December in a strong east-based El Nino. It looks almost the same, right? So people that are scratching their heads going, why is this happening? I don't understand. Why is it so warm in December? Why are we not getting snow? Why can't we have a white Christmas? This is not expected in this kind of pattern. So when we were doing this back in, since November, when we started the Weather Weeklies videos, I mean, this is kind of like the expected pattern here. You hope that maybe it doesn't work out that way, and you're in one of those anomalous years that does something crazy on its own. But this is exactly what it's supposed to do in this type of pattern. But we need to break this somehow. Here, this is the positive EPO. Here you have a strong Pacific jet influence, no blocking over Greenland. I mean, this is not a good pattern for snow and cold. But we got to figure out how to break this, okay? And the reason how you can break that and get from this to a January look in the same, this is a January look in a strong east-based El Niños, right? So it's a lot better. It's not epic, but it's not better. When you get into February, though, it is an epic pattern with blocking and all that nonsense, right? So we're getting some blocking back into play in January. I think that's why we're going to turn one of the reasons why we're going to turn on the snow part of it, and we're going to also have cold cutting underneath. All the strongest anomalies, the strongest heights move into west central Canada instead, and allows for some occasional ridging into Alaska and a ridge on the west coast of the United States, which will help out our chances for snow down the road, okay? So, again, we're looking at why this is all happening and what breaks it, okay? So we have to look to East Asia Mountain Torque. This is a positive East Asia Mountain Torque look, and this is looking at the evening of the 19th, which is in a couple days. Very strong, anomalous, high pressure over, this is China, by the way, because you don't know your geography very well. This is highlighting China, there's Mongolia right here. This is Russia up here, right? Or Soviet, whatever they call themselves nowadays. Here is the Himalayas, okay, right in here. That's the Himalayas. So we're looking at pressure on the leeward side of the Himalayas, and you can see it's very anomalously high. There's a big high right here, and this high pressure is all over the place. This is a very broad high pressure sitting in this area right here. It extends up further north than that, and it's also going to move southeast and eastern Asia. This is a positive East Asia Mountain Torque. This is not a very good look if you're trying to get rid of the Pacific Jet extension. In fact, this is what accelerates it. So you got the positive, what do you call it? Positive pressure anomalies, which is high pressure east of the Himalayas here. It creates a cross barrier pressure gradient force, basically, and it opposes the Earth's rotation. So the Earth's rotation, which way the Earth rotates, right? So it's moving in the same direction all the time. Okay, west to east, right? That's what we have. So it's going from west to east, and that's how the sun rises every day in the east and sets in the west. So this is a cross barrier pressure gradient force that opposes Earth's rotation, which actually slows it a tad, very small bit, but it does. So the atmosphere then has to speed up to conserve angular momentum, and then we get a jet extension as a result of that. So that's why you get this look. This is a result of that and what's happening in Eastern Asia. Now, with time, as you get out closer to 2 weeks ahead, we get in early January, there's all low pressure over that same area. So this is a negative East Asian Mountain Torque, which does the opposite. So instead of having a cross-barrier pressure gradient force that's opposing Earth's rotation, it's now flowing with it. And so the atmosphere does not need to speed up to conserve angular momentum, and thus you have a choked-off jet. So we go back to the jet here and put this forward. Watch this go through late December, and it's pretty strong, and all of a sudden it starts to retract. It starts to get weaker right there, and it starts to retract toward the very end once we get into January. Still not bad here. Oh, right there. See that? See how it kind of goes away? And it's not as strong as, or you're still going to have a jet there. It's an El Nino, but it's not going to be as strong or anomalously strong, flooding the air, mild air into the country. So, and then what ends up happening is then this allows ridging to build into the EPO regions, which changes the EPO from positive to negative with time. And you also have a ridge on the western coast of the United States. We'll stop this here at the end of this loop here. This is New Year's Eve. Well, you no longer have the Aleutian Trough. It's actually sunk down to the south here. You have some ridging building in Alaska. It's not a true negative EPO yet, but it's getting there. And you have a strong ridging here in the western United States. See that? Which allows cooler anomalies down here to start taking shape. Cooler than average. Now, I think it's, again, during that first week of January, it's not going to be immediate. You're going to have some ups and downs yet, but you're going to be generally near average for that week as a whole, and we're getting there, okay? We can see signs that we're getting there on the models, and this makes sense to me because of what's happening upstream. So if the mountain torque is going to change, we know that's going to choke off the jet stream because it's just physics. That's what it does, right? And it'll eventually turn into this look. Now, could this be delayed a couple days till like January 3rd or 4th? Yeah, I mean, it could. But that's the biggest thing, is trying to figure out the timing of these things when it happens. I know what's coming, and I know that because of observational data, not because of a model telling me. The models don't always respond correctly. And it might, so if you look at this as the European ensemble, it shows this happening at the end of the month here, which I'm fine with. GFS Ensemble does not have it happening at the end of the month. It has it in the first couple of days of January and hasn't milder yet for a couple of days. So there could be some timing discrepancies of when exactly it happens, and it's going to depend exactly when this East Mason mount torque takes place, how quickly it chokes off that jet, and how quickly we get back to a pattern that looks like this, where it's transitioning more to at least a neutral EPO, if not negative with time, and a positive PNA. So we're going to get there. It's just going to take some time and patience, and I still think we're going to get there. It's just a matter, I'm not trying to blow any smoke up your rear end or anything. It's just, trying to find out the exact day it's going to happen. That's why I don't commit to it. I'm going to give you say, well, it's going to be between here and here, because that's the best I can do. I just don't know exactly the precise moment this is going to change and turn into something a lot more conducive for snowfall. But I do think that once we get into January, we will be above average in snowfall, at least slightly above average. We have near to slightly above average, I think, in January for snowfall. The other thing that's going to aid this a little bit is a return of the best convection in the equatorial Pacific. Change it to the eastern Pacific, or this area here, areas 1 and 2. These are good phases for the Matt and Julian oscillation in January. They weren't as much in of an influence earlier in the fall, but now these are pretty good. Anything you will have in 7, 8, 1, 2, and you get in the winter months are pretty decent. So we're getting signs here from the GFS and the European model that we're going to be heading back in that direction, at least on this side over here, where the convection is going to be more conducive for to help us out here a little bit with some cold injection, some blocking. This will set up blocking down the road, and there is once we get into January. I don't know if there's blocking here. I didn't even look at that. But notice how you have no blocking over Greenland right now at the start of the period here. I just want to see what this does. I don't think it's going to get in by the end of the month, but you see at least the negative anomalies that retract, and you see some signs of maybe some blocking come in once we get into the first week of January, or maybe the second week of January. I think it's really the second week of January that we really start seeing some blocking start coming into play. So there's going to be some things changing. It's going to require some patience until we get there. And I know patience is hard to do because we haven't had, for a snow lover, you're like, I'm tired of waiting. I get it. But I do think it does change. So milder risk are present at time through the end of December. We're not talking about a blowtorch here. Actually, the warmest anomalies relative to average are going to take place with this storm. Okay, it's a synoptically driven warmth coming in as this low pressure moves up the coast. After that, we're going to be slightly above average on either side of Christmas. Nothing crazy, but we're going to have not a blowtorch, certainly. December doesn't look like it's going to feature any big snow, but we'll have thread the needle events still possible, and they're going to be generally like this thing on Tuesday. This just a little bit of snow showers. Mainly favoring the interior. I don't see anything really big. Maybe at the very tail end of the month or something that sneaks in there. We'll watch those. Those are thread the needle events, ones that are happening in a not so good pattern overall, but they can still occur because it's cold enough, or it's at night, or there's a little different things that come into play with that. The snowier pattern is still expected to come most likely in January, and obviously beyond that with time. But of course, patience is required for the next couple of weeks until we get there. Today's the 17th of December. Okay, we have time. It's not like calendar winter doesn't even start for another 4 days. Okay, so just the winter cancel stuff needs to take a back seat here. Just be patient for a little bit. Use this time to enjoy the time with your family for the holidays here. You don't have to worry about travel disruptions during the holidays. That'll be great. You also don't have to take advantage of this time to, if you have a snowblower, to tune it up, make sure the oil's changed and it's filled and ready to go, and start it up, and do this kind of stuff right now. Because once you get to January and you wait last minute, it's going to be too late. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, December 17th. I do plan on Christmas Eve morning to have a Weather Weeklies video next week, so that is not going to stop. We're just not going to have a video on Christmas Day for the the regular Monday forecast video, actually for that or New Year's. But we will have the Weather Weeklies continue here over next week, and again on New Year's Day. Or no, New Year's Eve in the morning, because all the festivities then happen later, right? So I can do that in the morning and continue on with these just fine. So I will see you again next week, same time, same station. Take care.